I'm Jay Moran.
I'm Bridget Jaipal Valenza.
I'm Thomas O'Neill White.
I'm Angela Preston.
We need to get together and let our voices be heard.
This is What's Next, a dedicated hour to have important conversations about the issues facing the marginalized and underrepresented communities of Western New York and Southern Ontario.
We're going to have some real healing. We've got to have space to tell some uncomfortable truth.
What's Next continues our mission to discuss race,
Equity,
And the common concerns of Buffalo's East Side and beyond.
In the suburban area, everywhere, we must work and teach our children.
Today on What's Next, we have two members of the Buffalo Urban League with us. Thomas Buford Jr. is the president and CEO. Good morning to you, sir.
Good morning. Good morning. Glad to be here.
Thank you very much for joining us. And also Darnell Haywood Jr., who is the president of the Buffalo Urban League. Young professionals also with Bank on Buffalo.
Good morning, and thanks for having me.
Thank you for joining us. We've got a lot to talk about. Let's just get into a generality about the Buffalo Urban League.
Sure.
What is the Buffalo Urban League?
So the Buffalo Urban League is an affiliate of the National Urban League. We're one of about 90 affiliates, the Buffalo Urban League. We were established in 1927 here in Buffalo, so, making our way towards a centennial. And, we're principally concerned with empowering our community and changing lives through our many programs and services. And when we talk about the community, we're greatly concerned with Black and brown communities and other underserved members of the population, and really helping them with economic empowerment and addressing all of what we might consider social determinants of health and wealth.
A lot to get into there, and we're
Yes.
certainly looking forward to expanding on the discussion. I want to just turn it to Darnell just a little bit because although you are the president of the Buffalo Urban League Young Professionals, as we mentioned, just going up here, it's a full-time job, but yet it's not your job. Your job is with Bank on Buffalo.
That's true.
How about give us a little overview of the Young Professionals then.
So the Young Professionals is an affiliate of the Buffalo Urban League.
Okay.
So what we do is to empower young professionals ages 21 to 40 through different programs, different activities. I know we spoke earlier as well, but a lot of times we're considered more so of a networking group, but it's not. We play hard, but we work harder.
Right.
So we want to develop that professional development, but as well as we do have different networking events as well.
Let's turn that right back to Thomas then. The young professionals and that professional development, how important is that to the greater goals of what the Urban League is all about?
I mean, it's essential. I mentioned earlier that we were formed in 1927. So when you talk about any organization that has been around almost 100 years, even with its mission, we consider us not just an organization, but a movement. And to do that, to stay relevant, you always need to be bringing in the voice of youth. You always need to bring in the voice of the next generation. So the young professionals is essential in that space. They bring in through their networks, through the contacts that they have, the programming that they influence, and just what they bring to the organization in terms of keeping us aware of what's important to them and for the next generation and their demographic. So it's extremely important.
And maybe we can open up this to both of you then. So let's talk about what that voice is. Those young voices are saying right now. What are you hearing, Thomas, when it comes to them? What sticks out to you when you think the young professionals, the younger people that are getting involved in the Urban League? What is the message or messages that are coming your way?
Many of whom are in a place where they're trying to decide on what their careers might be or advance their careers, and they are in some of the spaces that many people, Black and brown people, find themselves in, is that not an equal playing field, and we're there to provide tools. So they're looking for guidance, they're looking for tools, for resources, and they're also looking at their individual and collective strengths in helping to navigate through all these challenges, as well as being a voice of advocacy to make change to these policies and, really understand what the process is to make change, whether it be through voting and, empowering who is creating structures, and also, general awareness and, anything that they can do to help navigate, but also to help change the landscape as well.
How about you heard Thomas use the uneven playing field. I mean, that's not anything particularly new, but you're somebody, you're a successful professional. You're working with these young professionals as well. Probably some maybe are at a certain level. Others are trying to navigate that uneven playing field. What do you find with your group in that regard?
You think of the different workforces that's out there, the different jobs, the different companies that's out there. And a lot of times within these Black and brown areas, you don't see, or even within these different companies, you don't see a lot of individuals that look like you, or even look at the C-suite. You don't see a lot of individuals that look like you in those particular positions. And what we want to do is, one, to create programs, do different networking events with these companies to let them know that you do have these professionals that's out there that are, one, educated to be in these specific fields as well.
Can you go through maybe just reflecting a little bit on your time? Now, you've been in the banking business for almost 20 years, so you've got some experience. But when you were starting out, did you feel that, besides the fact that, like you said, you maybe didn't see people that looked like you, but did you have a sense inside some of those opportunities early on that this is going to be a tough road?
I will say for me, yes. The one goal that I set for myself personally was to, every 2 years, I wanted to achieve a different role in banking. And whether it was to shadow with someone, or even now, the role that I'm in now, I actually created my role at Bank Home Buffalo. So every 2 years, I shadowed and mentored with someone. I chose someone as a mentor. And it was difficult because you would see other individuals being promoted at that time. And I knew I was qualified for that role, but I still fought. I learned that during the time I still was in school as well. So I was able to graduate, go to school, become a manager in this particular role, oversee a department in that role. And yeah, I will say it was definitely difficult. And even thinking now, what I started in banking in 2006, and even looking now in 2023, looking at a banking scope now, since I've been in banking, that's been my career, you still don't see a lot of individuals of color in those higher roles. And you have that talent that's out there. And we just need to let them know that we're out there and we're ready.
Thomas, very much like Darnell, maybe your look doesn't give away your age. Darnell, it's hard to believe he's been in banking 20, and I'm not sure how old you are, so I'm not going to ask. But that being stated, how about for you, your path as you went along? How did you navigate through? And if you are a little bit older than Darnell, maybe it was maybe even a little more difficult.
No secrets here, and I'll just share with you that I joined the Buffalo Urban League as a CEO in 2020, fall of 2020. As its only its fifth leader since 1927. So, I had some very tenured leaders before me. My predecessor was there over 20 years, and, other great leaders, some over 30. That said, prior to joining the Urban League, I had a 4-year career in banking.
Oh, okay. So you know all about it.
So a little bit about that, and, started my career in New York City, and I joined HSBC, which was, here. But HSBC had an international management program. A boy from Brooklyn, I was very, I had my sights set on, I had a taste of it from a previous organization. Although it was more of a family-owned bank, and you had to be in a circle to really get those assignments that took you abroad. And when I moved to HSBC, or actually when HSBC acquired that company, they had a program, and it was actually based on an application, and it did have some semblance of meritocracy, right? So, I applied immediately, and that was probably in 1999, and so I did have a chance to work, live abroad, expand on my operations knowledge, bigger teams, bigger projects. So I worked in Asia for many years. I want to say the 3 years preceding me coming to Buffalo in 2006, I lived and worked in India.
Oh my!
Spent some time in Malaysia, China, just a few places, and we were headquartered out of the UK. That said, I came here to Western New York, and continued to be involved within my firm with diversity efforts. That's when it was a diversity. It was only a D for
there was no E and I
before the E and I and from some of the other letters, but involved in that, and really involved in community. I've served on several boards here, mainly because I knew how important it was to have mentors, to be exposed to different opportunities, to be exposed to just different experiences, life experiences, and I knew that I wanted to be able to share that. Education certainly plays a part, formal and academic education, but these other nuanced experiences are also very, very important. So as my career was moving along, I wanted to be able to give back and share, network and share what I could along the way, and then this opportunity came along. But I echo what President Hayward was saying about making sure that companies recognize the fact that there is this cohort of individuals who's there who has prepared themselves for this opportunity and waiting for opportunities, and not just an opportunity for a job, but to be put in spaces for career advancement. So we want to make sure that we're giving tools to help that along, because they don't have the benefit, of nepotism, cronyism, all these other informal,
just a little bit around
all these
there,
informal networks that exist. Even with the right intent, sometimes, I always speak of, there is a lot of energy now through the DEI initiatives that say, let's promote, let's put people in these spaces where they're getting these opportunities, but without these supportive networks, right? And then one of these things is the objective there is to give individuals this opportunity to succeed, but without this informal network, what happens is they may get just an equal opportunity now to succeed, but they don't always have the same opportunity to fail, and they need that as well, right? Because you'll see that other people who are in these informal networks or have these informal networks available to them, if they misstep or they don't understand something, then they have someone who might advocate for them. They might have someone who they can sit down and talk it through and understand how to move forward and navigate through that. And for people who don't have that, it could be career ending.
Right.
So they don't get the same opportunity to fail. Both are equally important, and some of that is making sure that just not giving them that opportunity, but putting an infrastructure around them that's supportive.
How about in terms of success, Darnell, with your group? I mean, you're relatively new with this, but I mean, I know you've been involved with the Urban League prior to this as well. But is there that energy coming together that we're finding new inroads? Between, like you said, the networking of people who are in professional situations. Are they finding other people to take along with them? Are we seeing that?
Absolutely. I think of the young professionals now. This year we celebrated the 10th year of the Buffalo Urban League Young Professionals. So we have the Urban League Young Professionals, but we also have the National Urban League Young Professionals as well. So we fall under that umbrella. We're still an affiliate of the Buffalo Urban League as well. But just thinking over the last 10 years and all the individuals that may have been through or still in the program, may have aged out now, they're all in great careers. A lot of them are entrepreneurs. Even I'll say even the immediate past president, he's an attorney. We have someone who was the president before as well. He has a great podcast that's getting national recognition. So, you think of those different members that were part of the league that have now been able to birth their own career paths and are just flourishing now.
Are there fields that are maybe a little bit more available in a professional sense for people of color and maybe others that right now are still, we're just not seeing that, like you said, the D, E, and I? I mean, can we make a generalization about that, or is that something maybe it's just uneven playing field that we're seeing across the board? Maybe. Any thoughts?
I would not say that there are any fields that anyone does not have access to, but part of having the young professionals, also grade schoolers, what we refer to as the little leaguers, and beyond the young professional, the guild, just having those auxiliaries. We're still always talking about pipeline, right? So it's also talking about how early is too early, or how early is early enough to start, exposing young people to things. Even if you don't expose them to them, really reinforcing that these opportunities are available to them. Not anything definitive, but the fact that they have the opportunity to just accomplish anything they want to. And then also to nurture their interest in certain things. If they have a interest in the sciences, if they whatever you can see, whatever spark you can see, or whatever spark you can inspire at the youngest age possible, and begin to nurture that exposure. Sometimes is not as organic as it might be in other communities. So we need to start as young as possible to catch those sparks and nurture them, and make sure that people understand what some of the prerequisites are, what some of these strengths are that will move them through some of these latter careers. As over time those things shift. Right. But it's really being there for our kids, making sure that they get the basic essentials, and not just the learning, but being in a learning and supportive environment, and trying to do that without safety fears, without things about food insecurity, housing insecurity, so that when they come to school, those things are not weights. That they are, concentrating on learning and having just general great socialization experiences.
How was this? Was there a spark for you that you can recall that gave you kind of that idea that I can be in this place? I mean, you're an international banker. I mean,
yeah. So absolutely, I would say, a lot of it began at home. I jokingly say that my mom always, she would say, you could, son, you could be president. I don't know if she meant the president of the Urban League at the time,
The president of something.
Probably the president of the United States. But now when I look at it, when I think about, there's probably still probably have a couple of good years that I can, make something can happen, right? You just never know. So there's that. But certainly, I spoke about this recently in a conversation I had with people at UB. During my formative years, I would say that I had great examples of mentors. I have some of the best examples of what I should be doing, and I had equal and as important examples of what I shouldn't be doing. But overall, I want to say that they were both, all of those influences looked at me and probably had some type of, offered some type of guidance, right? None of it was malicious. None of it was against me. All of them were invested in my success. I had some great school teachers, believe it or not, who, really, really pushed me, through education and, just other experiences beyond education, like exposing me to theater and to plays and to, books. And I just remember, third grade or something, someone giving me a book and saying, Treasure Island is, you need to read this, just getting to, just expanding my horizons, and really supporting me in any ideas, any thoughts that I might have, and continuing to push. And, I've always had my own passion about learning, and I continue to this day to be, thinking about continuous learning, continuous improvement. I believe would consider myself a lifelong student. But all those things are so very important, and I can remember at various stages of my life, and you sometimes don't get these mentors forever. Your mentors are great. Advocates are even better.
Mm-hmm.
The mentors are when you're around, they're saying things and they're promoting you, and advocates are the ones who are in those spaces when you're not. And if they see an opportunity, they bring your name into a space, and they're in places that will allow them to make opportunities for you. So, and then if we prepare for them, and those opportunities come up, that's those are collisions of success, I believe.
Let's turn that same question then you to Darnell. How about for you, the spark? What was the spark for you that got you going? Can you remember? I mean, I really enjoyed Thomas reflecting, especially I like that idea about not necessarily all the best advice and some weren't all that good, but you learned something from it anyway. How about for you?
I'll say mine is definitely very similar. I just think of conversations I had with my parents, and of course your parents are going to say you can do anything that you want to, as well as I think of my pastor as well. He would always, every time I would see him, would say, Mr. President, not knowing that I was going to step into this role. I have no idea. I haven't seen him since, but I'm pretty sure he's seen it on social media everywhere. But also mentors and advocates for me as well. My mentors always, I went up to them for anything, and even to this day, I still have some individuals that I speak with that tell me, hey, you're doing something right. Hey, you're doing this wrong. Rethink this. And I love that. I mean, you don't want someone that's always just saying, you're doing this good, you're doing this, keep going. But you always also want someone that's telling you, hey, maybe you should rethink this. Let's sit down and talk. Let's do that. And I have those people in my corner. And then also, I think of too, like even within my banking, even at a time when I worked at HSBC, I remember when Mr. Buford was over our, at the time, I think it was called the African American Heritage Department. Oh, yeah. And
HSBC?
At HSBC.
Okay.
And I remember seeing him and going to one of the things. And at the time, I knew one of our area managers who she's moved to a different area. And I was like, what does he do? What does he do? I need to learn to see what he does. I want to do what he does. And even from then, I was able to he probably doesn't know this now, but I was able to follow his career just to see different things that he's done in banking. And even now, we're connected now with the Urban League, which is kind of working full circle now.
Absolutely.
So,
That's a great connection there for sure. How does that feel, huh?
Yeah. That's the first time I've heard that. And wow, that's wonderful.
Nice.
That's something. That's something.
Absolutely.
So that's why it's important to just keep doing this work and trying. You just never know who's paying attention.
That's got to feel good.
I'm gonna have to talk to him about later. He sprung that one on me. So.
Well, that's hey, we appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah, of course.
We're talking from the Buffalo Urban League, their president and CEO Thomas Buford Jr. and also Darnell Haywood Jr. from their Young Professionals. He's the president of the Young Professionals, as a matter of fact. Thomas, I didn't get a chance to look it over, but the Urban League has a State of Black America, 2023 State of Black America report. Can you give us some of the overview, some of the things that are coming out of that?
Sure. So the State of Black America, the report you're referring to, is something that is published annually by the National Urban League. Now, there are certain affiliates that do their local state of, like there would be a state of Black Buffalo. And we have some great authors here, some who have done published similar journals around Buffalo. But the one that you're referencing, or the State of Black America in general, just talks to very high-level topics that are challenging. In this most recent publication, I did also have the privilege, the honor and the privilege of being one of the contributing writers, along with some very other influential people in mostly outside of the Urban League. But we're looking at just assaults on, on democracy, challenges to the voting process, challenges to, denying the history of black and brown people, and just through the educational process, suppressing our history, if you will, and making it irrelevant with the book bannings. But all of these aggressions, I won't even say that they're microaggressions at this point, but all of these things, this systemic erosion of a lot of the advancements that were made towards civil rights, towards equality, for all people, whether it be based on race, gender, just several rollbacks, if you will, on progress, and just addressing that and the danger of it, and just really trying to heighten awareness in that these things individually are alarming in and of themselves, but cumulatively, they are, a real very aggressive threat, and building momentum, and having a trajectory that's going against years, decades of progress and improvements. No, it's not perfect, but to roll those things back and to consider what it took just to make, just to have those advancements. That we should all be alarmed. We should raise that level of alert, and not only that, advocate and push back against it. And it's being done, not in some of the more kind of devastating and drastic ways that it was done in terms of violence before, but it's actually being legislated and appearing in some of our highest forms of the democratic government. We're seeing these things, and so we have to make sure that we are not that we are very woke and understanding of all these things as they happen individually and collectively.
You, as you were saying that, and you did say, you see it, you see the issues, you see it, like you use the word trajectory. Is it your sense that there's not enough of an alarm about those issues right now in the general conversation, that not enough people, and I'm not just talking about people of color, are seeing that trajectory and are as concerned about it as obviously you are and other leaders inside the Urban League?
Right. I think, I would not say that people are not alarmed, but also we have to make sure that as these things are happening, many of them are like just cracking the door open for something that we know could be even more pervasive or even more damaging. When we see practices that, or when we see legislation in our highest courts around affirmative action in around a few schools and in their practices, does that open the door to people saying, that become this very slippery slope into, should we start reducing or pulling away from DEI practices in other in other institutions, right? Will that start to now creep into other people saying, well, we're just going to start to back away from all of this progress and momentum that has been made lately, rightfully so. You might say it's late coming, but it was going, and when we talk about trajectory, it was going with the right level of momentum, right level of volume and velocity, and we're building on that. And to have something that starts to reverse that in any way is something that we have to look at, not only as the incident of what happened, but what that's opening the door to, and making sure that it does not and turn the tide and start to shift things in a different direction.
Darnell, you just heard us on that conversation, and I'm not going to ask you necessarily to review the State of Black America, the 2023 State of Black America report. But at the same time, you heard what Thomas was saying. I'm curious about some of your feelings about that, what you're seeing, and whether you have a similar concerns, and then maybe that's what you're hearing also from some of your peers.
Well, when I think of even the last part, as far as like the DEI efforts being changed, thinking of a lot of corporations now and a lot of positions that had that chief diversity officer, a lot of those roles are going away. They've combined them now for it to be. You see now it as more of a corporate strategy, as I think it's corporate responsibility, where it's ESG, environmental, social, and governance. So a lot of your focus is not more so on diversifying that workforce, but it's more so, are you taking care of the environment? And then you have a little bit of, well, let's make sure that we're social compliant. And then that last piece of governance, making sure that it's all going through. And, I think of, too, this year for voting. I mean, this is going to be a huge year coming up in 2024. And I know for us with the young professionals, we just definitely want to make sure that our voices are heard, making sure that the community's voices are heard, and that a lot of programming is geared towards making sure that you're going out to vote. I think of even the local vote that we had this past November. I went to vote at 6:00 p.m. and of course I live in the city of Buffalo, and I was number 20 at my polling place. So I don't think a lot of us know the importance of voting and why it's important. So definitely make sure that we focus on that.
If I'm not mistaken, I think the primary elections in the Maston and Ellicott districts back in June, I think, only had 16% turnout among Democrats. So let's address that a little bit, Thomas. That, like Darnell said, shows up at 6:00, and there's only been a handful of people there voting. Sure, it's 2023, and it's not the big sexy election that's going to come up in 2024. But what about both from an attitude standpoint among voters, and especially voters of color, and these issues that we've been raising, but just what you're kind of sensing about that, and then perhaps what are going to be the strategies? Time is fast running out.
Right. So first, let me say that all elections are important. Local elections, and
we see it on school boards.
School boards, all are election. They all inform policy. They all kind of roll up to the point where you're even looking at your electoral college, right? So all of this is happening. We raised the alarm around the census. Decennial census. We were talking about, we have to be looking at how our district lines are drawn. All these things are, part of our democratic process, and if we don't watch them as they're being assembled, as all of these pieces are so intertwined and so interdependent, we have to look at all of them. Certainly, there should be another level of alarm in terms of not only not participating, but watching out for forces that are eroding, diluting, or just making it more difficult to get to those paths of voting and being a part of that, the whole civic and democratic process. So we have to be very vigilant. Very vigilant.
Yes.
And diligent about what we're doing here. Darnell spoke about some of the changes. I'm going to shift a little bit. Some of the changes that might be happening in corporate America. We have to be very careful about even things are being homogenized or diluted. We have to be very, very careful about those things because the DEI process was very deliberate and intentional
yep.
and focused. And, when you start to group it with other things, not to say that those things are as important,
right.
Environmental responsibility and, governance, all of those things are certainly important, but we don't want to lose sight and have some of this effort kind of losing its prioritization as a function of being grouped with some other, very some other avenues, some other elements that need attention as well.
Sure.
So I would say that we have to make sure that we're defending democracy by our own actions, but also be aware of the actions of others. Even the slightest, beginning. We're walking into this this winter season, right? As kids, how you start to build a snowman, right? You start off with this very, very, very small snowball, if you will, and you just, if you just keep packing it around, the next thing you know is it becomes this huge other thing. So we have to be vigilant again about how this is happening, and make sure that we're in spaces and speaking up, and and those who letting voices be heard. And as an organization, I always say that the Buffalo Urban League, we don't speak for all Black and brown people, but we do speak up for them, right? We amplify the voices of our community in spaces where we can. And then the Urban League, as in and of itself, many would think of us in our empowerment strategy of being social service program administrators, but I would say that we're more social justice advocates now. And we do that not just through our services and programs, because we do have our offices and affiliates across the country, but we also have our office on Capitol Hill, right, where we know that it's just as important to be involved in the legislative process, to influence the legislative process. So we also have our Washington Bureau office. We have our conferences during the year. We also have our National Legislative Policy Conference in the spring of every year, where we bring the affiliates from around the country to Washington, D.C., and make sure that we engage our civic leaders, that we meet at their offices, that we go to these many large agencies who are responsible for federal programs, and we interact and make sure that we're on their radar, and let them know that they're on our radar as well.
That was you kind of led me into where I want to go with this conversation. It's interesting to hear what you were saying, Darnell, about a lot of the DEI initiatives are maybe going away or getting morphed into other things as well. And you, Thomas, used the word, it's not so much you speak for Black and brown people, but you speak up for them. Who, and I'm going to put this on to both of you, who else should be speaking up? And I know the answer should be everybody, but I would think there are key people, key elements of society that should be speaking and aren't.
All right. So I can't speak on who should not be. What I can talk about is who should be. Right. When we talk about being involved in this elective democratic process, then you're electing officials who should share your values, your interests, and who should be advocating in the spaces that that we as voting citizens, where we place them, we place our trust in them, and it is our belief that if we vote for them and we put them in office, that they will be acting in the best interests of their constituents. So, I won't say who's not doing this and who's not, but I know what should be done.
Gotcha. Darnell, you want to take a stab at that as well? When you you look at the landscape and you say, here's a sector of society, or here's a part of what's going on, and it's just too quiet. It's not getting involved in the conversation.
I agree. I would say it's the same. Your elected officials. I mean, we go to vote and trust this individual or group of individuals that are elected to serve us, to go in, to make these changes, speak for us. So I would definitely agree with him by saying the elected officials. That's the voice that should be there for the community.
They don't always listen if there's not a true voter backlash. Then it's not, if there's not that kind of pushback, right? All right.
There is that. I mean, and the Urban League is certainly there, to be that voice of, we're not that voice of advocacy. Okay, so we're saying we want our youth to come out and vote, and then if you say someone that I think is not participating at the levels that we like, we do need more young people voting. Some of them are, kind of looking at the process and saying, what does it really change? Or maybe they don't see a candidate that's desirable. But we need to change that narrative and let them know the impact, not only the impact of voting, but the impact of not voting as well, and not and your voice being silenced through your own actions or inaction for that matter. But we do consider ourselves champions that fighting for social and economic justice. We do consider ourselves fighting for, populations that have been historically underserved, and really trying to give every opportunity for them for their best, success.
We've got another 10, 15 minutes or so to go here in the program. Thomas, you got big plans for your new headquarters, moving over to Jefferson Avenue. That's the plan.
Right.
If you could just expand on, I can see why you'd want to be on Jefferson, but the time and place and why now?
So a few reasons. One is the Urban League and its current growth. Our current location. We've outgrown our current location, physically outgrown our current location, and we reached that point some time ago. And we have a few satellite locations. Some of them were more strategic than others. Some is what's available, at the right economics. But we want to be in what we're trying to do now to get to optimize and to get the best return on our efforts and resources. We know that we have to be very deliberate and very intentional. So our move to Jefferson Avenue was one out of necessity, in that we needed to. The decision was that we needed to move out of the space we're in, or we need a larger space than what we were in. We looked at our collective footprint and what it might take to have a space that could service the organization for the growth that is already accomplished, and then also where we feel the organization is going strategically. And then we wanted something that we could co-locate some of our services, and there would be some synergies and some, a better way to serve our community there. We looked at different locations on the east side. We were birthed on the east side of Buffalo.
Is that right? Yeah.
That's correct. So we were birthed on the east side of Buffalo and had a few locations there. We're currently located in downtown Buffalo. We looked at a few places, and we thought that not only what would be best for us, but where could we have the most impact economically, spurring growth, creating hope, igniting additional hope, and also, we knew that wherever we moved, we were going to do something substantial. It's not just our headquarters, but our plan is to create a campus. So it'll be larger than just our headquarters space. It will include some other commercial space, and right now we're trying to go through the strategic process of understanding, what we're going to be doing in the housing space as well there. So it's going to be more expansive than where we are now.
So you're going to have housing in there?
It is our intention to have housing, and we're working strategically through. We have a development committee set apart to guide us here and to inform us here. But we're looking at all of that as we move through this plan, and it may be a phased approach, but all of those are things that we have considered. They are not foreign to other Urban League affiliates. I will say, of those 90 affiliates, if you see one Urban League affiliate, you see one Urban League affiliate. While we're empowered, many of our programming, under the umbrella of the National Urban League, we take some of the program from there. Some of it is almost It's spread across most of it, but each one is empowered to serve their community with programming as they best can, and what that's most relevant to their community. So we know right now this community is poised for. We need economic growth. We need all of these again issues of social determinants of health and wealth, the food insecurity, all of the years and years and years of institutional racism that impacted this community, the lack of investment that's been there. So we thought Jefferson was a place that we would land, that we could have that type of impact, help create some additional critical mass there, and spur growth. And we know that there are projects happening all across the east side of Buffalo, but we wanted to be a part of this renaissance. Conventional wisdom has taught us before that, and in many other cities, this whole rising tide theory, that if you built up your downtown, if you built up your waterside, then certainly the economic growth from that, the economic impact of that would kind of be spread out to, reverberate throughout the city. But we saw that not to be the case on the east side, when you could see just on, east or west of Main Street, just the stark differences, and so we know some of that was intentional over years and years and years. So the response to that has to be intentional and very deliberate as well. We know that the impact or the issues were multifaceted, so the response to that has to be multifaceted. And we want to be, a part of that. We want to be on the leading edge of that, and timing is.
Is timing good right now?
Timing is good right now. Timing is good right now. People would question economic conditions, but for us, we've been in some. We've been studying this for some time internally, and we know that this is a time where we believe that the community is very deserving of all the resources that we've been able to garner, all the work, all the support that they've given the Urban League over the years. We want to help be a part and help steward the growth in this community. One of the reasons we want to do that is because it's not a question of if there's going to be development on the east side of Buffalo, or when. Because if you're talking about location, you want to be next to the medical corridor, you're there. You want to be, blocks away from Canal Side, the east side is there. If you want to be near the theater district, if you want to be near even the African Heritage Corridor, or go to, all these new amenities that are popping up. It's almost a new frontier. So it will happen. The question is, when it happens, who will have equity in it? Equity in not only its evolved future state, but as it is evolving, as it is growing. Will they be part of the businesses? Will it be part of the jobs, the workforce that's created as this is happening? And when we get to this future state of development, the safeguards will be development without displacement. Will those individuals who have been long-term residents, who've been in these areas for the, through the worst of times, will they still be able to be residents in its future and a better state, if you will? So that's a very, very tricky process, and it requires a lot of stewardships through change in policies, through change in programming and resources. And you'll know in recent news that other organizations are being as deliberate and focused on the east side of Buffalo. So yes, we wanted to be part of that momentum.
I'm not going to get into it anymore, but you touched on a big thing there, though. It doesn't get a lot of talk about it, the idea that it almost there's a certainty of redevelopment coming to the east side, but who is going to benefit and who is going to live there when that is, as like you said, as it's being accomplished. Darnell, I just want to turn, because I saw you nod your head when Thomas was talking about some of the projects that are going on in the East Side, and you kind of gave a, like a look of affirmative, and we'll maybe turn this more to your banking background to a certain extent. But what excites you? I guess I should say maybe are there those types of projects on the East Side that are, these are things we should be hopeful for?
I agree. I mean, not just even my position with the Urban League, as well as with my position with the bank. I also sit on different boards throughout the city. Example list New York, and there's different programs and funding that we're bringing to East Buffalo. So just seeing the funds that are there, but a lot of the individuals don't know that to have access to those funds. So just seeing the project, for example, of the Urban League that's going to be going on Jefferson. You have the Say Yes building that's there now. The Urban League also has a location now in Jefferson still there, the Resilience Center. But just seeing those different projects there, it just shows. I actually grew up on Jefferson. Oh. So just to see those different developments coming in that area is great.
Okay. All right, very good. So you're bullish on this, or should, I mean, you never know how the economic things go, and we've got into a little bit more about national issues and things along those lines. But do you think that you have a good, strong feeling about
I do.
that? Yeah?
I definitely do. And even from a banking standpoint, too, I mean, you have two banks that's in that area that's there just to help the community be more financially sound, to bring financial wellness to that area. So I think there's a lot over the next few years that you'll see come in between that East Side corridor.
Is there still, though, a struggle, though, for minority-owned businesses locally to get the capital that they need to thrive?
I will say there is a struggle, but of course, I know we had spoke earlier.
Right.
A lot of institutions now are developing programs to, one, make sure that there are programs available for minorities that may lack in access to capital, as well as on the credit side, to become business owners.
I'm going to finish this up, our conversation, with the call to action. I'm going to start with Darnell, and then we'll come back to Thomas on this. What do you want your call to action to be? To just kind of the things we've talked about here, whatever constituency you want to talk to. What do you want to see action-wise?
Action-wise, I'll say, and I'll throw this out to, of course, the young professionals, 21 to 40, is to just make sure that, one, you're able to reach out to another individual or another professional to let them know that there's access to funding, to become a business owner, to become that professional here in Buffalo. We're looking, like you said, the theme of the Urban League, or the motto for the Urban League, is to empower the community. We're looking to empower, to improve, and I'm just ready, one, to take force in 2024.
Nice. Thomas, how about for you? I mean, you've touched on a lot of things here today, but in a statement or two, the call to action that you want from our listening audience is listening to you right now.
No, so there's a lot. I'll start. I'll just close by saying, this whole empowerment strategy, this whole new type of energy that we're trying to bring, this community has every reason to, have be skeptical about, what's going to change this time. So many times that, promises have been made, not kept. The trust has been put in with to people, to institutions, and they've been failed. Even working as hard as they possibly could, and have done everything that they possibly could, and then it's kind of it's almost that Charlie Brown thing where he goes to kick the football and Lucy just pulls it out from under them every time. It's just so much of that someone could take. But I will say, be encouraged, and do not let the the past experiences, as hard as that might be, because these are not just experience. This is over time, and repetitively it becomes trauma. So we have to be informed, and we're trying to help this community move forward, understanding the trauma, not just the incidents of trauma, but the generational trauma and all the ancestral trauma that's here in this community as we move forward. And we're here. We have that kind of cultural understanding. We have an understanding of what these challenges have been in the past, and the Urban League is here to help fight for this community. And when we say this community, that our employees are from this community. We're of this community, so we understand that trauma, and we are here to help fight and move this community forward.
Now, Thomas, every time I ask you a question, you give me like 3 more other questions, but we're out of time. I do appreciate that. Thomas Buford Jr. is the president and CEO of the Buffalo Urban League, and Darnell Haywood Jr. is the president of the Young Professionals. Gentlemen, thanks for taking time from your very busy schedules to join us on What's Next.
Thank you.
Thank you.
This is What's Next on WBFO and WBFO HD1 Buffalo, WOLN Olean, and WUBJ Jamestown, your NPR station.